Hey, welcome back to my video series where we look at the intersection of faith, Christian community, and the LGBT. Today I want to talk about motives, judgment, and conscience. We often hear this extra biblical advice that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. It's very subtle what this statement is actually doing, because it's actually asking a person to ignore their good intentions and also to ignore their perspective on those good intentions. This is often done to minimize disagreement on ethics, and the LGBT are often on the receiving end of this. Furthermore, they are made to doubt their own view or perspective from a young age, and their motives are always placed in question along with their perspective. I believe it's actually a form of gaslighting, which is psychological abuse, into getting someone to doubt their own sanity or perspective of truth or motives. And because it's a constant drumbeat, these things are not allowed to settle out into how they're supposed to. I guess as an LGBT Christian, the whole experience centers on the destruction of the conscience. And this is something I've had to think about in different ways. Like all the Westminster Confessional, all the great creeds of the Protestant Church have said that the Lord alone is the Lord of conscience, and it's not bound by the doctrine of men. And even so, I think the conservative church has recently minimized this, and they've also minimized the teleological aim of the law, which is the purpose of the law, for only the deontological, or what is written, of the law. And it seems very attractive to do this because of the inspiration of Scripture and how all Scripture is God-breathed for reproof, teaching, instruction. How about we just go to what is written? And I think there's a good aspect to that, but we also have to see what God wrote about motives and judgment, because I don't think that kind of perspective actually goes deep enough into what the Word says. So let's first look at 1 Samuel 16 verse 7. This is talking about King David, and is said to Samuel, and it kind of goes at what the Lord's looking for in a person. But the Lord said to Samuel, "Do not look on his appearance or on his height or his stature, because I have rejected him. For the Lord sees not as man sees. Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart." So I get kind of this perspective that the deontological, or like the law aspect, tends to be outward appearances, and the Lord looks beyond that to the heart, which I would say is the purpose or the aim of the law. The heart is what matters. Furthermore, we see Paul write in 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 5, "Therefore do not pronounce judgment before the time, before the Lord comes, who will bring to light the things now hidden in darkness, and will disclose the purposes or motives of the heart. Then each will receive his commendation from God." And we see here that, yes, the motives are important, and God's going to actually disclose them. And what I think is interesting is I think this is actually done publicly, because nothing that is hidden will not be revealed, nothing that... and I think that includes motives. So everyone's going to know everyone's business, and it's on that God judges people. And I think it's going to be very open to examination, because I think God gets his glory from how he deals with us. So your motives, my motives, are going to be in question. They should be pure, and they should come from clean consciences. And then we also see Solomon write, "At the end of the matter, all has been heard. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God will bring every deed into judgment with every secret thing, whether good or evil." So we have every deed being judged, but also every secret thing. So it's not one or the other. It's they're both judged. But we know that God tests people's hearts in judgment, and judgment is going to be fair and open for all to read and understand. But okay, so I guess with this topic about moving over to affirming, it kind of started about 3 years ago. I had a friend enter a gay relationship, or just a relationship, and the standard church advice was for me to kind of exclude or exercise church discipline towards him, which often amounts to rejection. Now, this in me seemed very hypocritical because as an LGBT, I deal with some of the same feelings. And also, it felt like the demand to reject someone was akin to bullying. Now, this produced in me a certain amount of PTSD from 7+ years of childhood bullying, and my conscience could not do it. And the thing is, I've done impossibly hard emotional things before. Opening up was one of them. But the thing with that was it was dying to self, not sacrificing others. And the law is always summed up in love. So this was another impossible decision for me to figure out what I needed to do or how I needed to respond. And it felt like hell was opening up before me, and it's, do I jump in or do I push someone else in? Which kind of sounds like turning them over to Satan, but that seems a little sociopathic, but that's a whole aside. But if it is sin, I'll bear my response with equanimity, because I believe judgment will not look as many people perceive, and I have faith that to not exclude was the right choice, and to embrace was the right one. And sometimes that faith is all you can live by, along with a clean conscience. But anyway, one verse I often go to for support when it comes to LGBT stuff is actually in Romans 2. People forget that it exists after Romans 1, which was a polemic or an attack. And then Romans 2 kind of turns the corner on the people making that attack, and says this: For when Gentiles, this is 3 verses, 14 through 16, for when Gentiles who do not have the law by nature do what the law requires, they are a law to themselves, even though they do not have the law. They show the work of the law is written on their hearts, while their consciences also bear witness, and their conflicting thoughts accuse or even excuse them on that day when, according to my gospel, God judges the secrets of men by Jesus Christ. So here we have all those elements put together, and what's interesting is how the conscience excludes people from judgment. This seems very much in favor of the teleological purpose the name of the law, over just the deontological of what is written. And what I think is important is that people maintain integrity and do what is right when it is right. And that seems a lot more difficult because it can be a slippery slope at times, and I don't really reject that, but if God really looks at the heart, you should pay attention to the heart as well. And I don't really know what else to say other than God will not necessarily deal with us the same fire and brimstone way that we think he will. Instead, I think we pretty much know how we are, and where we stand as far as our integrity. And within the church, we have a lot of heterosexual teachings, and we have a lot of teachings on the road to hell being filled with good intentions. And at times, I feel a lot like Luke 18. I guess you have verse 11, and then after. You have the Pharisee standing far off who said, "I thank God that I'm not like other men, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even like this tax collector." I would add LGBT in that list, because that's kind of the vibe I get from the church, whether true or not true, instead of the "have mercy on me, a sinner." One leaves justified, whereas the other does not. Now, I eventually came to the conclusion that homosexuality is not a sin. But at the time, it is like there's an in-between sometimes where you may not be at that stage, but you can't keep on keeping on with the dirty conscience towards your LGBT brother. And anyway, I'm going to leave you with that and just ask you, is your conscience clean? Do you live with integrity? Do you fear God? Thanks.